Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação para o Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo! Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, it's Eric Erickson here. I hope you are doing well. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Let me recap, do all that before we move on to other stuff. I'll take your phone calls this segment as well because big news day. We kind of knew something was probably going to happen, and then suddenly it happened today. Iran attempted to rain down hell on Israel a short time ago, over the last 2 hours. And at the same time, Israel commenced a ground invasion in Lebanon. The Lebanese army, you should know, has refused to fight. It has, in fact, retreated across the river there. Iran has rained down these ballistic missiles on Israel. They take 12 minutes to get from Iran to Israel, giving the Iron Dome system limited time to calculate a trajectory and respond. They attempted to overwhelm the system, but by and large, it worked. John Podhoretz on Twitter noted the creation and promotion of missile defense by Ronald Reagan remains one of the signature events in world history, and everybody who derided it and him have lived to see a worldview discredited. It was Reagan who wanted the Star Wars defense system, and it worked. It's been a huge couple of hours. A senior Iranian official has told Reuters that Tehran informed Russia ahead of the missile attacks on Israel, and that the United States was alerted by Iran through diplomatic channels before the attack would begin. And now people on the left are claiming that because no one died, Israel should not respond. That's actually it, because Israel was so successful in its response with Iron Dome and bomb shelters that Israel should not mount a response because no Jews died. And then, of course, if Jews die, they got what was coming to them because they're colonizers, so Israel shouldn't mount a response. There's no way for Israel to win. Israel must fight. Because what we're seeing, again, and this is so crucial for everybody here to understand it, Iran today demonstrated that it has a ballistic missile arsenal that can be equipped with nuclear warheads and get to any one of their enemies in the Middle East. They're not just enemies of Israel. Iran is at war with Saudi Arabia through proxies, particularly the Houthi in Yemen. Iran is at war with the United Arab Emirates through terror cells and through the Houthi. Iran is at war with Bahrain. Iran is at war with Jordan through proxies, trying to destabilize that government. Iran is trying to rebuild the Persian Empire, essentially, as an authoritarian Islamic theocracy that is Shiite-based. They don't like the UAE. They don't like Saudi Arabia. They don't like Jordan. They run essentially a Cold War operation against all through proxies. And now they have the capacity to launch ballistic missiles. If they get nuclear capabilities, it destabilizes the entire Middle East. Israel must respond. It's the only country in the Middle East capable of mounting a response. All the other countries depend on the United States' assistance. So one of the wild things that has happened on social media as I pointed this out is a right-wing progressive named Adam Johnston. Don't know him. He apparently writes at The Blaze. When I pointed this out, says, never let an opportunity for another American war in the Middle East go to waste. Not only is that an ignorant, guttural response, but it misses the point that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, they all depend on the United States to protect them from Iran. This is about Israel and letting Israel off the chain. We don't have to do anything. Israel must. Israel's got to respond before Iran can put nuclear warheads because Iran wants to destroy Israel. It has been running this proxy campaign against Israel to undermine Israel. Now the proxies are destroyed. Iran's got to go it alone. They're going to use nukes if they get them. It is the stated goal of the Iranian regime to wipe out Israel. It is the stated goal of the Ayatollah Khamenei to bring on the Mahdi, that is, the end times. It is his religious belief that Israel must be annihilated to make that happen. We're dealing with religious fanatics. It's so comfortable to be a progressive leftist to presume that these religious fundamentalists are all they're all wonderful, capable, rational people. You know, it's wild. According to the progressives in this country, American religious fundamentalists are the crazies, and Iranian religious fundamentalists are the reasonable people. That's the world in which we live right now. The people who want nuclear warheads to bring about Armageddon are the reasonable ones you can do business with, and the ones in this country who love Jesus, they're the radicals who probably need to go to jail because they prayed in front of an abortion clinic. That's where we are. To the phones. Max, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
Hi, Eric. Yeah, not bad. Thank you. You know what, Eric, I hear a lot of times people that talk about the things like that. A lot of times I'm trying to not involve myself, but then all of a sudden I get so angry. I'm saying, why I shouldn't say something at least about this thing? That's not the Iranian it is the Iranian government.
Yes.
That's the Islamic Republican of the Iran. It has nothing to do with the Iranian. There is too many people living out of the country since these things started, not just in the United States. All other countries the same. Millions of people. Whoever they stay over there because they have no other choice. They can't do it. What they have to do. They can't speak even the language that they're supposed to learn. So this is not fair to say that we're going to hit the Iran. What about the Iranian that every time any athletic they come to this country, people, they fight with each other. Who's going to be a host of them?
Okay.
How many videos you have seen on the TV that from the American, they says that they took care of us so much, they loved us, and all those things. And all
so,
of a sudden,
Max,
the Iranian is the bad people?
Max, did you hear the message I played from Netanyahu to the Iranian people?
No, unfortunately.
No, that's fine. So about an hour ago, Benjamin Netanyahu released a message to the Iranian people, and he says, we know the fight is not with you. We know you love peace. And essentially said, we know you're held hostage by a regime you do not want, but cannot by yourselves overthrow. And we want you to know that our fight is with them and not with you, that you are our friends and you are our family. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, that I have lots of Iranian friends around the world who hate that regime.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They speak Arabic, not Farsi. They don't wear the same clothes that Iranian they wear.
Right.
And I can't believe it that they really hate the Arab people. It seems that they're on their side. This is what I see it. Why you are not listening to anything the Iranian people they wanted? What is our freedom?
And it's notable, Max, that after Nasrallah was killed from Hezbollah, the Iranian people took to the streets and celebrated. That's right, people. The Iranian people took to the streets in Qom and Tehran and in other cities to celebrate the death of Nasrallah, because the Iranian people are hostages to a regime that terrorizes them, and they lack the means to be able to overthrow them. And you got to remember this. I hate to go there, but I must. A very long time ago, the Israeli people were dragged away after a very long siege in 587 BC and over a number of waves, and Judah was made a vassal kingdom of Babylon, the Persian Empire, after Nebuchadnezzar invaded. And the Jewish people, many of them wound up staying in the Persian Empire. Remember Jeremiah 29. God essentially tells the Jews that you're not going anywhere. You might as well hang out, make yourself at home, because you're going to be stuck. Build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons, and give your daughters in marriage so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I'll come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. A lot of them stayed. Was a significant Jewish population in Iran. I know Jewish Iranians. They are friends of mine. Many Iranians are married to people who, when the Shah fell and the Islamic Republic rose, they fled to Israel. There are Iranian Jews who live in Israel. There is a great relationship between the Iranian people and the Israeli people. And it is the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah and the mullahs who are in charge, who are not really tied to the Iranian people. And the Iranian people lack the means to overthrow them. They live in a terror state. Israel's going to have to do this. Israel's going to have to act. Israel's going to have to respond. Dave, you're up next. Welcome to the show.
Eric, thanks for taking my call. A few years ago, we were at a SEC championship game at the Georgia Dome, and there were some Iranian people out there protesting, and I remember my wife saying, "What is that all about?" And I said, "They're protesting the leadership of Iran." My comment I wanted to make was, and I got a question for you too, so I'll try to be quick with this. Tonight in the debate, J.D. Vance, my hope is that he seizes the moment and takes advantage of what happened today. And to your point, how the Biden administration has empowered, Iran to get all this power and control and the money and whatnot. I hope J.D. Vance takes advantage of that and uses specific facts, point out how the Biden administration has done that. And my question is, in Metro Atlanta, when do you plan on having a book signing? I'd love to have you sign my book.
We still need to organize one. The WSB, my flagship station, had mentioned trying to organize a book signing. I need to be able to get that done. Dave, I'll make some sort of announcement when I can. I don't have any forthcoming details, but I guess I need to try to organize one, have people show up, and I'll sign their books. Thank you for that. Yeah, and as to the other, we'll get into the debate when we come right back. But yeah, J.D. Vance should call this out tonight that the Biden-Harris administration has been waiving sanctions emboldening Iran to the point that Iran could build back out its ballistic missile program. They even waived sanctions on the missile builders in Iran. Did you know that? It's true.
Tem momento na carreira que precisamos dar passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
Greetings and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Happy to have you with me. Let me go to Michael's phone call here. Michael, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing well through the hurricane and everything.
Yes, thank you.
So I have a question. How well can Israel respond to what just happened or other things when they're not really sure if they're going to be rearmed by the U.S. or not, or Great Britain or whoever? Because they've withheld armaments in the past. How can they respond and know that they're going to be supported in what they're doing, rearmament wise?
That's a great question. So we have agreements to provide certain arms to Israel, and the Biden administration has dragged their feet on some of them. It becomes a political issue if they decide not to arm them. The British have already cut off arms supplies to Israel under the new Labor government there. So Israel does have concerns for that, but they also have an internally built massive stockpile of weapons already, in particular missiles. I have a hard time thinking, given what Iran just pulled off, that the Biden administration is going to be able to put Israel on a chain and say, you can't respond. I think the outrage, the political outrage in this country would be too much between Republicans and Democrats sympathetic to Israel. And as well, the growing recognition that something's got to happen to the Iranian regime because it is clearly in quest for nuclear weapons. There is this academic strain that really does believe that if Iran gets nuclear weapons, it will bring peace because we won't be able to do anything to it and it won't be able to do anything to us without nuclear war. But when you've got a leadership that wants to bring about nuclear war, I don't know that peace is possible. The Democrat national security policy in this country is so willfully naive. It really is just naive to think that because Iran tried to kill a bunch of Israelis and wasn't successful, Israel should not mount a response. It's the thought that counts, I guess. It's a wild thing. And if Joe Biden says he's going to withhold armaments from Israel, you could see a fight with Congress because Chuck Schumer is a strong advocate of Israel. Most of the major members of the Senate in the Democratic Party are staunch supporters of Israel. I mean, you could potentially even see a veto override. I would imagine that you could get a 2/3 override if Biden tried to block something, if Congress tried to force him to adhere to pre-existing agreements. This could actually blow up in Kamala Harris's face, too. There's the political fallout there of not helping Israel. I mean, with all the instability in the world that we're seeing right now, it might be time for you to talk to Swiss America. They've been the trustless leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned assets from this secret war, you need their free report on the secret war on cash. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets, and their report is completely free. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save on your retirement and finances. You get a free copy by calling or texting 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash by the government includes digital forms of currency, and it's spreading. So read the Secret War on Cash report completely free. All you do is mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. Call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Get the free report. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings, conversationalists. I am delighted to have you with me. We've closed the phone lines, not because I don't want to talk to you, but because I've talked to you enough, and I've got plenty of stuff to talk about that I hadn't been able to talk about because we've been watching this situation with Iran where they shamefully tried to ruin Jimmy Carter's birthday. After ruining his presidency with the Iranian hostage crisis on his 100th birthday today, they're trying to ruin it. Happy birthday to history's greatest monster, by the way, President Carter. Now, if you're offended by that, and some of you probably are, it's actually a line from The Simpsons that I mentioned before. I just assume everyone watches The Simpsons. And one time they referred to Jimmy Carter as history's greatest monster because of Argyle sweaters and a killer rabbit. And I threw that out one time, and oh my gosh, did I get angry emails from people saying, how dare you call that good man history's greatest monster? Like, it's The Simpsons. Laugh at it. Laugh at it. They built him some Habitat for Humanity house, 100 years old. Good for him. Good for him. And just in hospice. And it's always kind of sad as well to see somebody like that just slowly fading. But what an interesting life he has had, 100 years old. Now, I gotta move to a story I've been waiting to get to all day. In fact, if you get the podcast, this hour of the show is titled "The Kids Are Stupid and Can't Read." That's the title of the show. And we've been so distracted by the mean old Iranians distracting me that I hadn't been able to get to the story. And the story is so worth watching, or so worth covering. Large numbers of students are arriving at prestigious universities unprepared to read a book cover to cover because no teacher has ever asked them to do so before. Let me read you this excerpt. This development puzzled Dames, a professor, until one day during the fall 2022 semester, when a first-year student came to his office hours to share how challenging she had found the early assignments. Lit Hum often required students to read a book, sometimes a very long and dense one, in just a week or two. But the student told Dames that at her public high school, she had never been required to read an entire book. She had been assigned excerpts, poetry, and news articles, but not a single book cover to cover. Professors are reporting their students are less able to absorb details while keeping track of the plot. They have narrower vocabularies. They're shut down in the face of challenging ideas, and they struggle to persist through challenging texts. The great Melville scholar Andrew Del Banco has switched his American literature survey to a seminar on short texts and dropped Moby Dick from his syllabus in favor of Billy Budd and Bartleby, saying he's had to adjust to the times. A couple of professors told Rose Horowitz, who's writing the story, that their students see reading books as akin to listening to vinyl records, something that a small subculture may still enjoy, but are mostly a relic of an earlier time. Public education is destroying our kids. I've told you this story before a little bit. My daughter got a little bit resentful at my wife and me because we moved her from a pretty academically accelerated private school to a small classical education Christian school where you had to learn Latin and stuff like that in elementary school. You had to answer questions on your feet. They used the Socratic method. They had really a deep theology class. I mean, she did an entire year in the book of Romans as opposed to the old school, which was tied to her church, where you basically just memorized a Bible verse. It was very superficial religious instruction. The new school, I mean, was hardcore. But it also used traditional math. It didn't use Common Core math. It didn't use the accelerated reader program where kids are essentially encouraged to read small books as quickly as possible for points. They actually had to read in-depth books. Like they had to read cover to cover the Iliad. They've had to read cover to cover all sorts of books. And she went to a program at Georgia Tech, and she was really apprehensive because she's like, I'm going to a school where we don't have advanced robotics, we don't have the latest, greatest computers, we don't have all the technology. I'm doing the summer program at Georgia Tech. I'm going to be behind and embarrassed. She went, and I'm not making this up. I promise you I'm not making this up. Her roommates for this 2-week program were a Wiccan, an atheist, and a Buddhist. And next door was a transgender Satanist who got a room to himself because no one wanted to be with him in the girls' wing. And my kid wound up having to do all the presentations because none of the other kids had the social skills to be able to stand up and answer questions from the professors about their presentations. And it turns out my kid did just fine with the calculus. She could handle the math like everybody else, but she had skills they didn't, like being able to read and digest books that they were having to read and stand up and make presentations. I'm telling you, classical education is amazing. Classical Christian education in particular. The elementary school where you've got a rhetoric school where you're memorizing a lot of data, then the logic school where you're processing the data, and then the upper school where you're having to take that data, analyze it, not just comprehend it, but analyze it, process it, and answer questions with it. It's really remarkable. And real math, not this Common Core math garbage that they're making kids do these days. Public schools have rotted the brains of kids, and they're not making them read books. What you may not understand, like I honestly hate to read. I can't remember the last time I sat down and read a book cover to cover. And part of it is my job. I read so much now, but law school and seminary just destroyed my desire to read a book for pleasure. I used to go every year to the beach every week, and I would pick books. Like one year we went to Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I read cover to cover all the Harry Potter series in that 1 week. Another, I reread all the Narnia series. Another one, I forget what exactly it was I read. I know I've reread the Iliad one time, and there are some books that I just kept coming back to. But just trying to actually read. I know what I did. The Master and Commander series, I read all those books. Such great books. But I have a hard time even now with my attention span because there's always other stuff. There's always interruptions, and I'm having to make myself sit down and read. And a lot of what I read now is kind of academic stuff. It's not fiction, entertaining stuff. But losing the ability to read a book, here's the benefits of reading a book, by the way. For those of you who are young and thinking, I don't need to read a book of fiction, actually, there are academic mental reasons. One, it builds your mental capacity. 2, it builds your vocabulary. 3, it builds your attention span. 4, it helps your ability to process facts. 5, it helps you follow along multiple disjointed paths and be able to tie them together. Those are competing plots in a book that ultimately weave together at an end. 6, it improves your memory. People with mild dementia who start reading actually have improvements in their memory. The more you read, the better off you are. That kids are coming into school now and they can't read books is actually a pretty damning indictment. Nicholas Dames has taught literature humanities at Columbia University. It's required great books course since 1998. He loves the job, but it's changed. Over the past decade, students have become overwhelmed by the reading. College kids have never read everything they're assigned, of course, but this feels different. Dames' students now seem bewildered by the thought of finishing multiple books a semester. His colleagues have noticed the same problem. Many students no longer arrive at college, even at highly selective ones, prepared to read books. In 1979, Martha Maxwell, an influential literary scholar, wrote, quote, "Every generation at some point discovers that students cannot read as well as they would like or as well as professionals expect." Dames, who studies the history of the novel, acknowledged the longevity of the complaint. "Part of me is always tempted to be very skeptical about the idea that this is something new," he said, "and yet I think there is a phenomenon that we're noticing that I'm also hesitant to ignore. 20 years ago, Dames's classes had no problem engaging in sophisticated discussions of Pride and Prejudice one week and Crime and Punishment the next. Now his students tell him up front that the reading load feels impossible. It's not just the frenetic pace. They struggle to attend to small details while keeping track of the overall plot." No comprehensive data exists on the trend, but the majority of the 33 professors I spoke with relayed similar experiences. Many had discussed the change of faculty at faculty meetings and in conversations. Anthony Grafton, a Princeton historian, said his students arrive on campus with a narrower vocabulary and less understanding of language than they used to have. There are always students who read insightfully and easily and write beautifully, he said, but they are now more exceptions. Jack Chin, a Chinese literature professor at the University of Virginia, finds his students shutting down when confronted with ideas they don't understand. They're less able to persist through a challenging text than they used to be. Daniel Shore, the chair of Georgetown's English department, told me his students have trouble staying focused on even a sonnet. Failing to complete a 14-line poem without succumbing to distraction suggests one familiar explanation for the decline: smartphones. Teenagers are constantly tempted by their devices, which inhibits their preparation for the rigors of college coursework. Then they get to college and the distractions keep flowing. It's changed expectations about what's worthy of attention, Daniel Willingham, a psychologist at the University of Virginia, told me. Being bored has become unnatural. Reading books, even for pleasure, can't compete with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. In 1976, about 40% of high school seniors said they had read at least 6 books for fun in the previous year, compared with 11.5% who hadn't read any. By 2022, the percentages had flipped. But middle and high school kids appear to be encountering fewer and fewer books in classrooms as well. For more than 2 decades, new educational initiatives such as No Child Left Behind and Common Core emphasized informational text and standardized tests. Teachers at many schools shifted from books to short informational passages, followed by questions about the author's main idea, mimicking the format of standardized reading comprehension tests. In doing so, they sacrifice young people's ability to grapple with long-form text. And you need to be able to grapple with long-form text to be able to comprehend, synthesize, and analyze ideas adequately. The use of excerpts because of Common Core is killing brains. Common Core, it all comes back to Common Core. What corporations wanted with Common Core, they said, was a system where a kid who lives in Oregon, is uprooted and moves to Georgia, can plop down in Georgia schools, and be on the same track that they were in Oregon, and be able to process math differently and reading skills differently. What they actually wanted, what they didn't say, is they wanted good automatons for the Fortune 500 to be good worker bees who would be compliant and would not be challenging and would not be entrepreneurial. Common Core has killed the entrepreneurial spirit of the country, and Common Core has killed the inquisitiveness of students. By design, no less. There are teachers out there to this day who will defend Common Core, but the results continue to come. Our kids are falling further behind in math and further behind in reading, even as these teachers say, oh, it's the new method. It's going to be the wonderful method. And yet the results aren't adding up. Our kids are today stupider than they've ever been. They lack any imagination, and they lack the ability to read. And the exceptions are the ones who go to more classical models, where they're forced to read and be challenged on points and texts and plot devices and have to actually sit down and do real math. Those kids are going to be everybody else's bosses one day. What we're continuing to see is that the educational systems in this country at the elementary and secondary level are destroying the brains of kids, and they're blaming smartphones, and smartphones are a problem. But the way we teach kids in public schools, and even some private schools embracing Common Core, is just as big a problem. Now, your problem may be stink in your house. Could be. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm can take care of the stink. It generates ozone, and that ozone gets into the cracks and crevices where the odors hide and neutralizes those ions. Odors are actually ions. They're particles that float in the air that are attracted into your olfactory system, and your brain processes those as smells. What the Eden Pure Thunderstorm does is it generates ozone that latches onto those ions and destroys them. So you can't generate odors. No odor can stand up to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. And it's also an air purifier, so it gets rid of pollen and dust. It gets rid of bacteria and viruses floating in the air. It works using electrostatic plates. You can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. Eden like the Garden of Eden, pure as driven snow. EdenPureDeals.com. Use the discount code ERIC3, ERICK, the number 3, no space. ERIC3. You'll get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. So you can have them in your upstairs, your downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV. You can hold this thing in the palm of your hand. I keep one in my travel bag, and they work. You can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3. Greetings, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. What an exciting day. If the Iran attack on Israel had not happened today, everybody would be talking about the port strike and Joe Biden's unwillingness to deploy the Taft-Hartley option. The Taft-Hartley option would require the dock workers go back to work for 90 days in a cooling off period, and the head of the longshoremen, who, by the way, has questionable ties to the mob and other things, has been indicted. In fact, he was being prosecuted, and a key witness against him disappeared, and his decomposed body was found in the trunk of a car a few weeks later. Real credible ties to the mob. And this guy is essentially saying, I'm going to cripple the economy, and if Biden sends us back to work, we're just not going to give it our all, and we're going to slow ourselves down anyway. He's trying to block automation of American ports, and he's also, even more disturbingly, trying to essentially take touch point commissions, which means every time they touch a container, they get the longshoremen get a commission, they get a kickback. The problem here is, like in Europe and every other country, they will put cargo on barges and send up rivers to deploy. The longshoremen in this country force them all onto trucks and trains because then they get to touch them. So there's no automation process. The touch only comes when you take them off the water. So if you keep them on boats, you don't get the quote-unquote touch. And they're trying to shake down the ports for this, which will drive up costs and also decrease efficiency. They don't want any sort of automation. The Dutch have found that they can not only keep people employed but speed up unloading of cargo through automation processes. So the longshoremen here want deep inefficiencies that just keep costs on the rise, and they're making $150,000 to $250,000 a year right now. They're not the good guys here, even as they think they are in a situation like this. We're in a natural disaster situation, and they're shutting down ports that will have supplies incoming for places like North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia and Georgia and Florida, and they're holding the country hostage. And you got less than 40 days before the election? The fact that Joe Biden won't send them back to work, though, makes you wonder if he really wants Kamala Harris to win, because it will have a rippling effect in the economy. And all of this is going to unfold tonight on the debate stage between J.D. Vance, who's very pro-union, and Tim Walz, who's very pro-union. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this. How much will their policies be in common on this? I'm skeptical of this pro-union push by the GOP under Vance. We'll see how it plays out. Tonight, the vice presidential debate. I'll bring you the highlights on the show tomorrow. We'll see if Israel mounts an aggressive, rapid response to Iran, or do they bide their time and do it. My guess is there's a little island in the Persian Gulf that's going to blow up, which is where Iran exports all of its oil.